Back with more Haunting of Bly Manor. This is episode 4. Very excited to continue, see what's going to happen next. Last episode we got a lot of backstory about Rebecca and Peter Quint, who's a dick. So I think that allowed, certain events, certain behaviours that we've seen already and will probably continue to see. It kind of put all them into context a bit, I think, of you can kind of get a sense of like maybe what could be going on here. What influences may be affecting people like Miles, for instance. There's some good stuff with all of that. And some less than happy developments in present day as well, with Owen's mother dying, and some little kind of character moments between all of that. Little hints of maybe some romances going on, which I'm excited to see explored if we do explore them. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the show so far. These first 3 episodes have been fantastic, so I'm sure that will continue on. I'm just really intrigued to see the mystery deepen even further and to see if we're going to get any questions answered anytime soon. But yeah, without further ado, let's just dive into the next one.
Mom says they make me look extinguished. She probably said...
Are they the creepy glasses? Oh, that's the guy, isn't it?
You said, "Good morning, Mrs. O'Meara. I'm Danielle, and I'm going to be Edmund's new best friend." You always know your mind, always. So if...
Oh boy. Well, that's going to be a disaster, isn't it?
It's your day off. I promise. I don't need you to be my date to Owen's mum's funeral. Okay. Can you help me get this thing off? Buy me. Seriously.
Dinner first, please. I ship it. Make out. Maybe not with the ghost guy watching you though. Might be a bit weird.
Your parents loved you so much that in a way they'll always be here.
They're not here. I'm sorry, Miss Clayton. They're really not.
It's probably easier for her to count the ghosts she can't see.
I pay my respect to my own ways. He understands that funerals are for the living.
Is that going to be some foreshadowing?
Me and Miles will help. I can chop things up.
Like funerals are for the living and those 3 aren't at the funeral. Viola Lloyd. Oh, okay, that's getting focused on. Making note of the name Viola.
I thought you said you were making our favourite for dinner.
It's Owen's your favourite. It's Owen's favourite.
I'll make tea.
No. Yes. You
Oh, that's horrible. You can fuck off.
I thought he was Peter Quint.
Which is ridiculous. I'm much better looking.
Calm down, Poppins.
You should eat. I bet you
Oh.
haven't eaten.
And she made your favourite.
This is gross. How did you know Owen was coming? She's been making your favourite.
Come on. Let's now ask for you for a change.
Oh,
Shepherd's pie's your favourite.
oh,
So I went.
love shepherd's pie.
You're not dying, you know.
Excellent.
When Mum and Dad died, I thought I was going to die too. I was sure of it.
Oh,
It only felt like dying. Because actually, I was still alive. You have to be to feel that way. Dead doesn't mean gone. So, you don't need to be sad.
that's what Miles said at the school.
I think I ought to be allowed a glass of wine.
Do you now?
I want an actual bloody drink.
No!
Well. I think that might be Peter. Because he was a bit possessive over wine in the last one, wasn't he? I don't know why I did that. Like holding a wine bottle. No. Does she like use the dollhouse as like a map of where the ghosts are? Like, that's where she puts the dolls.
My mom was was alive, but she wasn't really there anymore. So a lot of the times I had to be my own
Dead
parent.
doesn't mean gone, but alive doesn't mean you're there.
Miles, you've got some great grown-ups.
He does.
Great people here to choose for your family.
I love the sound of a crackling fire,
Oh, there she is.
which makes me sound about 60 years old, but what can you do?
Been drifting lately, quite a bit of a fright.
What's happened to her lately? She's drifting, she's seen the crack, she says she hasn't been sleeping lately either. She's not eating.
Yeah, I thought you wanted a big wedding. If you don't, that's all perfectly well and fine.
I thought I wanted.
Perfectly splendid, even.
For a second, I thought you were going to say you didn't want to get married at all.
Yeah.
And eventually I would feel how I was supposed to.
You didn't want to hurt me, huh?
Yeah, it's not just about the wedding, I feel, is it?
I love you. So much.
Yeah, but I don't think you're in love with him.
It's just not.
You, Danielle.
Oh! I mean, I don't blame him for being a bit upset, but there's just so many circumstances. Oh no! Oh! Oh! Fuck! Oh, and the hand in the bed.
Toss in offerings to drive away evil spirits. Old bones mostly.
I remember that. That's why they call it a bonfire, isn't it?
As I was saying, that's why it's called a bonfire. In Old English, we mean bonfire.
Rebecca. Alright, my turn. Lord and Lady Wingrave. Here's Danny Clayton.
She's a bit of a weirdo, but she's a lot stronger than she thinks. If anyone can bring Miles and Flora back to themselves, she can. I'm glad she's here.
She has sweet teeth. And a dirty laugh. And she loved me so hard. No matter what I did.
My nan, the dirty laugh.
She was long before she died. And I miss her. She was my anchor. She seemed so small at the end. But still so heavy. And all I could do was just let her hang on to me until it was time to let go.
Wish I had a fucking bottle of wine. Down that bastard. You gonna try and let him go? No, we're gonna flashback. Yeah. I like that it doesn't seem like he's maybe necessarily like a traditional kind of ghost haunting her or anything. It's like it's her guilt manifesting, I think. Oh. Something so simple image-wise, isn't it? That? That's so good. Oh, that's so nice of her. Fuck. Stop crying.
She'd chosen someone to keep close to her that she could feel tired around. Chosen someone who might help her burn away the shadows.
I'd broken up, I guess. Right before.
Jesus, Danny, the same day.
Same minute.
I'll sort him out for you if I have to.
Think I'm crazy.
I think you're surprisingly sane and considerate.
Yeah.
Feel like you can't.
There we go. Hi. There he is.
Okay. I thought you might like to have these.
There we go.
I can't stand to look at them. I couldn't bear to throw them away, so I thought, please.
Okay,
Thank
of course.
Yeah. That's for her more than anything. Oh.
you. You're still a really important part of this family. I hope you know that I mean that.
That is so nice.
Oh,
That's just going to make her feel even worse because they don't know that they were broken up.
my sweetheart.
she like leaving? Yeah. Oh man.
Paris. You and me while we still can.
So sorry to interrupt, but I'm turning into a pumpkin.
Did he just ask her to go to Paris?
Time to go home.
Alcohol you later.
God in for you.
Miss Keaton?
Oh wow. They really do move. Oh, of course, that's how she knew Danny wasn't in her room all night. Ah!
An old reached out and it knew my name and it said it wanted to do awful things. And I had bones for hands.
That sounds off.
God. Ah.
I'm sorry.
Is it her who leaves the footprints or something? Oh. So he didn't do anything wrong, that's the sad part. It's just one of those things. She's letting him go though, I think.
Just you and me then.
Okay, another really great episode, and we got quite a few answers in this, which is nice. We really got to understand Danny's backstory with the creepy guy she was seeing with the glasses, learning about how that all came about, how it played out, you know, why she was kind of seeing him. The fact that, you know, it was just something that she saw, and I like that there was a haunting going on that's actually quite separate from Bly Manor as well. That was just her own personal thing she was going through. It was just kind of a manifestation of her grief and her guilt, I think, more so than anything kind of super spooky. Because, you know, I think a lot of people will be like, oh, I think I saw someone, or I saw a ghost or something, and, you know, it isn't going to be tied into this huge kind of haunting conspiracy. Like, I feel like maybe, you know, the Rebecca and Peter situation, everything probably will be. So I really liked seeing that. You know, it was her childhood friend who she ended up engaged to. I think for reasons that became very clear in her scenes with Jamie, I think that's kind of why she wasn't quite feeling, you know, that relationship and being married to him and everything. But he was also clearly someone very important to her, and she didn't want to hurt him. So, you know, it would have just been better to have been honest, obviously. But yeah, that was the tragedy of it, really. That whole thing with Edmund, Eddie, because he didn't do anything wrong, Danny didn't do anything wrong. It was just one of those unfortunate things that her heart ultimately wasn't in it. Even at that time, maybe, you know, I don't know if she even knew then that maybe, you know, her heart probably belonged to a woman later on down the line. Maybe that was where her interests more so lie. But, you know, she may not have even known that then. She just knew, like, this isn't what I want. And there's a big focus in that, I think, with Bly Manor so far. We've had a lot of characters just sit someone down and say, look, what do you want? Tell me what you want. We had that with Peter and Rebecca in the last one. We had it a bit here as well. So that's kind of a key thing. Key? Get it? Keys? That was a thing as well. So yeah, I found that really sad, that backstory with them. And the idea of people just talking about their own personal ghosts, I guess, and trying to let go of them. I think Danny made a huge step forward in that. Not only because, you know, her and Jamie got to smooching, but that last ending sequence as well, as she burnt his glasses. And it was kind of like, you know, I get why she took them as well. She didn't want them, but it was more so for Eddie's mother, obviously. To try and give her a bit more peace. It's probably quite comforting for her to know that even though she couldn't bear to look at those glasses, you know, someone still had them, someone still had a piece of him about. That's probably very comforting to her. And I do want to shout out, I think the character was called Judy, Eddie's mum. I feel like she said Judy, something like that, I think. The actress who played her I thought was really, really good. Obviously, you know, not a huge amount to do in this one. We only saw her, you know, on a few occasions, but I really liked her. Her performance, I thought it was very good, very well done. But yeah, everything with that was just so sad, and just the unfortunate circumstances of them just so happening to go out to dinner because the whole reason that happened was because Eddie wanted to like give her a break from wedding stuff. So he, in a way, he kind of gave her what she wanted condensed into one dinner where they didn't have to talk about any of that stuff. And because he was, he cared for her well-being enough like that to take her out to dinner, that's the reason he died. Because that then led to her being honest with him, led to him stepping out of the car at that moment. So as sad as it is and tragic as it is, I liked getting the backstory behind that, and that there wasn't really a villain to that backstory. In a way, I feel like Peter is very much the villain of whatever happened a year ago, and Rebecca and everything. I feel like that's all coming down to him being a dickhead. There wasn't really that kind of villain here, so I found that really nice and really interesting. And I liked them exploring that, and Danny potentially finally letting that kind of go, letting that side of things go. And the idea of finding someone to move on with, finding your family, like she was telling Miles all about, finding your own people to kind of move on with, help you kind of recover with, and she's clearly found that in Jamie. I would say Owen definitely found that in Hannah, based on him being like, hey, let's go to Paris, it's not too late. So that was a thing. And I think it was just kind of the case of that, and the fact that they mentioned a few times Danny always seems to find children who need her the most, need her help, and she ended up here. And in return, I think they're kind of helping Danny out in a sense, like that scene where they were kind of covering up that ghost from her, I suppose. She didn't want her to know that ghost was there, and it seems to be that person who then goes out and around the manor, and whether they make the footprints themselves or Miles following them, he is the one making his footprints. We're kind of getting a reason for that. And that's also really interesting in itself with, the dolls seem to represent where the ghosts are at any one time. I think Flora kind of uses them to keep track of things and everyone in the house. She says she always knows where they are. And this has clearly been going on for so long for the kids that they just know the routine, because they've mentioned a few times, like it's like twice a month or something. I feel like they've mentioned that they sneak out at night apparently, and it's clear to do with that ghost woman, whoever that was. I don't know if that was the same ghost as the one who was like humming with Flora when they were playing hide and seek. Was that someone else entirely? I'm sure we'll get some clearer answers, but I like that they're getting some of those gaps filled in terms of what's going on with that. And these kids are kind of hiding their own stuff, but they clearly know a lot about what's going on in the inner workings of things. So they might know, oh, this is a pretty dangerous ghost that's around the house tonight, and they're like, we need to make sure that Danny doesn't leave her room or anything. So I like them trying to cover it up in a sense, and the fact that they would cover it up is interesting. So I did enjoy everything with that. And I guess they feel like they want to protect the ghosts or keep an eye on them, keep track of them, because it does bring them a sense of comfort. Like Flora's really lovely speech she gave to Owen about how she thought she was going to die too when her parents died, but dead doesn't mean gone, which is obviously very true to a lot of different things and like hauntings and stuff. What she was saying about that, and she kind of realised she didn't need to necessarily be so sad because people aren't gone. She finds some comfort in that thought, even if she hasn't necessarily found her parents' ghosts. She can't see them. She is seeing other ghosts, so maybe that is proof that her parents aren't gone. So I liked that. And the fact that, I think if their bodies had been brought back and they could bury their bodies in Bly, they probably would be able to see them and things like that. So maybe that's why they're keeping track of the ghosts and everything. But I like that Miles and Flora do have that little thing that's theirs, and why they want to protect that from everyone else is kind of an interesting thing to maybe delve into and find out about. But we're getting more of a picture now of exactly how some things are occurring, how much everyone knows about certain things going on. We know a lot of the backstory with Peter and Rebecca. We know a lot of the backstory about Danny and what she was seeing, and I think they've kind of cleared that up fully now. It was very symbolic, her burning the glasses and everything. Just the imagery of the glasses, shining bright because it was like the headlights of the vehicle that killed him. It's such a cool image, especially when you see when he does get hit. His eyes are like bloodshot and like red and everything, and it's horrible. And like no wonder she would remember, if she's going to be haunted by any image, it's better to at least just have the shiny glasses as opposed to like his bloody eyes. That was horrible. And like his twitching arm was like what she saw in bed before. And I think a really effective image was when people were like paying their respects to her and like saying how sorry they were at his funeral, and then there was just shots of him like behind her with his hands on her and stuff. And I think was it the last episode or was it this episode where she was at the sink or something and then she had hands on her sides. That's, you know, similar kind of thing going on with that. So that was cool, and the fact that she's found someone in Jamie that she can finally tell that to, the fact that she was going through all of that, because she's never spoken about that to anyone before. That was, I think, the key step in her learning to move forward, because she may have found someone that she can actually love in a way that she couldn't love Edmund, and she's always going to feel guilty about that, I think, because she loved him, but I don't think she was in love with him, for reasons that are very clear. So I really enjoyed getting all that backstory and seeing that in a way wrapped up. I don't know if there's going to be more to that. I wouldn't be surprised if we never see Edmund's ghost again now. Well, ghost. You know, the vision of him. Because it does feel like she's trying to move on from it. And at least trying is a huge step forward rather than just like, you know, hiding all the mirrors away and stuff. But I think she actively wants to embrace that. Because she couldn't quite do it when everyone was around her, like making their peace with their own ghosts. But when it was just her and Jamie, she could talk about it. And then when it was just her alone at the fire at the end, she could, you know, take those big steps forward. So obviously there's a lot of progress, and I don't think it's a case like, well, never going to think about him again, because, you know, they were childhood best friends, and I think he was still a very important person to her, even if she wasn't in love with him per se, and she didn't want to marry him. You know, she probably felt quite trapped in that very young before you even realise, you know, oh, do I like this person? Do I like, you know, this sex, this gender? Discovering those kind of things about yourself before that, she was kind of seemingly locked in to that relationship. And, you know, it's no one's fault again, it's just things kids do. And I love the story that Eddie told about, you know, he got dared to kiss her, so he did, and then someone told him that's how he got someone pregnant, so he proposed to her and everything. That was like such a brilliant lie that children would believe. So that felt very real and truthful and grounded. So yeah, very tragic situation, but I did enjoy getting those answers finally. And yeah, great performances all around with that. But it's a cool way of kind of advancing things, moving them forward. I do like Danny and Jamie as a pairing. I think it's quite an interesting match. So, you know, they've strongly hinted that connection in the last episode, so to see them continue to explore it was cool. Same with like Owen and Hannah, I feel. They certainly they've had a few moments, and then Owen very quietly being like, let's go to Paris. So yeah, I found that all very interesting. And just, I feel like Danny could very much use someone like Jamie who has that self-assurance in herself, that confidence in herself, what she believes in, who she believes in. You know, it was her idea to kind of talk around the campfire, and she invited Danny along to that. It was her idea, and she like told everyone what it was, like the origins of the bonfire, you know, what it normally used to symbolise when they first did it. So it all kind of spawned from her idea to kind of, let's try and let some of these ghosts go. And that's exactly what Danny needs to do. So it makes sense that she would gravitate towards Jamie, someone who has that kind of idea. So I thought that was a really interesting thing, and I like that they're kind of exploring that dynamic. I think it's a very interesting connection between those two. In that sense, you know, I think Jamie would be very, very good for Danny. So yeah, where that goes, we'll have to wait and see. 'Cause, you know, there was a bit of holding back and a bit of awkwardness, but with that very ending where Danny burnt the glasses, maybe she's going to be, you know, in a much better position now to maybe explore something with Jamie. So I'm excited to see where that all leads. And yeah, I loved Flora's little speech she was giving to Owen. I thought that was really nice. I love Owen. I love that he makes puns, and I feel so bad for him. And Miles, the moment when he was talking about the wine, I do feel like Peter is having like a big influence on him. I don't know if he's like possessing him or something. It would make sense because we were talking about love and possession in the last episode. Like, some people can't tell the difference, and they might mean literal possession of a child. In terms of Peter's case, maybe he is doing that. And then Danny kind of misconstrued that as like, oh, you just, you want to be one of the grown-ups who talk like a grown-up, which again is something children do. So it could be easily believed that they might just think that's all it is, even though there's more going on to it. So I thought that was an interesting thing they did as well. And yeah, there's still a few things with Hannah that, things aren't adding up with some of the things she's seeing and what's going on with her. Like, very recently as well, she keeps saying it's recently, so exactly how recent and when we still need to kind of delve into, but I'm sure they'll get to that at some point. And then Owen, oh man, his little speech when he was like letting go of his mum by the campfire, the bonfire even. God, that got to me. That felt very true. That felt very truthful. I don't know. I think I saw the guy who wrote this episode was called Liam. Is that right? Because if so, that's kind of creepy. Because I do kind of feel like I wanted to say that speech that he gave felt so real and from experience, from like lived experience when he wrote that. I mean, I haven't personally known anyone with dementia. Well, people in my family have had it, but they died before I was born or before I could remember them really. But what he was saying about how close to the end she just felt so small, yet it was still so heavy, because she sits heavy in the heart, losing someone like that very slowly but all at once. That just spoke so true to me about my nan, who passed away it was 5 years ago now. She had cancer, and just what he was saying about all that, that just rang so true to me. And the fact that his mum had this dirty laugh, my nan had exactly the same thing, so I just felt a lot of parallels and a connection to that, so that really got to me. So that just felt like it came from a place of truth. But these kind of shows, they do monologues very well, I find, and as someone who has a degree in acting, I quite enjoy monologues, so I did appreciate where that came from. And I thought, I think his name's Rahul, the actor. He's fantastic in this episode. So that whole speech was also very kind of moving and poignant and stuff, and just kind of an interesting kind of bouncing off point, I guess, of what Flora was saying to him about she thought she was going to die when her parents died, and now we literally had a speech of someone who just lost his parent as well, and bouncing back from it, trying to move on from that, letting her go, although he's not ready to let her go himself yet. He's talking about that she had to let him go when she passed away. So that was all done very, very well. I thought that was very emotional, very impactful, and I loved the actor's performance in that as well. So yeah, definitely quite invested in these characters and these stories when they can do stuff like that. It's so well kind of woven together, all these different stories and stuff. And there were a few moments they're clearly hinting at other things as well, and there's a few choices where I'm like, like what was it when Hannah said, what was it exactly? What was the wording? She's like, funerals are for the living or something, and yet her, Danny, and Flora were all there, and they weren't at the funeral. Is that going to be some kind of like foreshadowing? I don't know. There were some interesting cuts to different people as well, I found, particularly during Flora's speech, when she was like, oh, I can't remember the exact word. She was like, oh, you could be dead, and no one else knows it or something. And it cuts to Hannah. And I was like, that was an interesting choice to give to her. And there was another one as well. So I don't know if that's going to be some kind of foreshadowing, or they just want to show everyone's reaction to her speech, and I'm reading too much into it, which is probably the case, because I talk way too long about TV shows. But I feel like there was another one as well, but I can't place it. Was it to do with Jamie? I can't remember, but they've done a few things like that, and I just find that really intriguing. Because there's going to be red herrings as well in this kind of thing, isn't there? And it's just so cool to kind of work out like what's going to mean something, what isn't, because some things are just going to be throwaway stuff that they kind of throw at you, and if anything sticks, like it might not even be anything significant, which I quite enjoy. and you know, the ghosts in the background, that I haven't really seen any that we weren't supposed to see recently. I'm sure there were plenty of hidden ones. I can't remember seeing the Plague Doctor in a couple of episodes, but I'm sure that they've been about. It's always creepy kind of going back and seeing like some really obvious ones you've missed. I was like, but yeah, I found all of that quite interesting to see how this is all gonna play out. I don't know yet, but it's a genius way of giving us answers, but also being like, you still don't know anything, but we have answered some of your questions. You feel like okay, I understand the situation a bit more. I'm very aware of what's going on now, but also I don't really know what's going on. You know, I'm like, okay, so you know, it could be the ghost that's leaving these tracks behind, and you know, Miles and Flora clearly, you know, working things out, using dolls to maybe track the ghosts or whatever. But it still doesn't really answer anything because I don't understand why all that's happening, but I still feel satisfied that I'm getting something from it. It's not just like they're holding everything back until episode 9 or something, which, you know, makes sense because it would be very poorly paced, I think. And I think the episodes would drag if you didn't get any answers for 9 episodes. But it's just so brilliantly written and constructed to kind of keep you invested in the story. And we still have 5 episodes to go yet, you know, not even halfway through. So God knows what else they have in store for us, but I'm really, really loving it. This was another really fantastic episode. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen next with it. Where we could take the focus now. I think obviously the connection between Danny and Jamie's probably going to be a pretty big deal. There's going to be more to the Peter situation as well, and a possible thing with him and Miles, and like just what Flora and Miles are kind of doing with the ghosts and their interactions, and like how that started, how that came about, how they were aware of it, why are they not telling the adults about it, stuff like that. I'm looking forward to seeing. Viola. Why can I not pronounce that name correctly? Viola. I'm a big fan of 12th Night. Why can I not say Viola? They lingered on that grave. Again, is that just going to be a red herring for whatever reason? Because there are plenty of graves there they could have focused on. Which is why I was like, okay, is Viola going to be some... Is that like the woman ghost in the background? Is that the one who was humming with Flora? I imagine the fact that it did linger on that, it's like, hey, folks, remember that name, remember this. So I've written it down, and hopefully that will come up again. Otherwise I'm going to look like a big dum-dum if it doesn't. But it's just little things like that, kind of what I was talking about earlier, you know, what are some things red herrings, are some things not. Because, you know, the show does sometimes linger on shots for a bit too long, and you're like, should I be noticing something? Sometimes it's nothing, sometimes it is something, like the shot of the cellar where one of the dolls moves. I think that was episode 2, maybe. But yeah, making note of it anyway, but I like that they leave little clues in. So yeah, fantastic episode. Really loved it. Very emotional at times, like the stuff with Owen. I really enjoyed the backstory, and Danny maybe letting go of Eddie, starting to move forward from that. It was cool to get some answers about what was going on with her, and the fact that there wasn't really a villain involved in that backstory. It isn't like directly tied into what's going on at Bly. It was just something that she happened to be dealing with herself, because everyone has their own ghosts, their own kind of mysteries of their past. Really good stuff, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go next. But yeah, fantastic episode. Loving this show so much, you would not believe it. And I'm very glad to be as invested as I am with another 5 episodes to go. Like, feed me. But yeah, that's going to be everything for now. And until my next reaction, thanks for watching.